might have it muted on.
I'm going to sit in front of him.
Little Rock, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Hey, Kim. Would you do me a favor? Don't you? Do me a favor? No. Hold that card right there to the right of Tom. I can't find it.
The right, this one?
Yeah, stand. Once you get that. No. You stand right behind there.
Mark, we can hear
holding it. No. No,
Baltimore.
Come around. Kim, just pick it up and then just stand.
Baltimore, can you hear us?
Because I'm going to read it by where you're sitting.
Mark, we can hear you. Digital Harbor
Okay,
can
great, thank you. I just wanted to do a test.
So you can move that one.
you can hear us?
Now what's going to happen, Kim, is I'm going to read through that. Then I'm going to read the book. And after I finish reading the book, that's when I'm going to need that one standing up for you to have that one. Okay?
Yeah.
So as soon as I finish reading this book, that's when you're going to have to pull up that card. Okay? Wow. The smart. Yeah, phone's on vibrate.
Hey, Little Rock, can you hear us? George?
Mark, part of the problem might be, as he said before, there's a passing period right before this begins for them.
Okay.
Meaning, and he said the way that their classrooms are configured, that there'll be some students going right through their classroom into another classroom that's adjacent, but they should be.
I think there's
if we fix it here, then it may just be happening and they may be finishing.
So when they are connected, will we be able to hear them here?
We'll be able to hear them through that.
Okay. All right.
When you're speaking about it in the beginning, would you like me to mute them so that you're just speaking?
Yeah, if they
right now?
Bring the volume up.
Hey, George?
George?
All right, I think it's out of this max. Can you guys hear us?
Can you hear us?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we're good. Hi, everybody.
When it's band speaking. Why do I feel like they look like a cooler school? This school is cooler.
Hey, you guys move a little bit more to this way.
I can see us now.
Because we know what lovely rose brings us.
Baltimore and Little Rock, we're actually going to start now. You guys ready?
Okay, yeah.
Both are ready?
Okay, they can hear us.
Okay, great. We're going to start. Thanks.
Tell me when. Hey, you want to do that?
You never know what's going to happen. Just begin.
Hello, my name is Van White, and on behalf of the Rochester City School District and the Council of Urban Boards of Education, let me first say welcome and thank you for joining us in this national student-led conversation about race and rights. Indeed, this is the second time the Rochester City School District and the Council of Urban Boards of Education has sponsored such an important dialogue. The first occurred this past January on Martin Luther King's birthday. On that day, the Rochester City School District and CUBE were joined by 7 different schools from across the country, from Camden to LA to Ferguson to New York City. We all joined in a digital conversation about discrimination and racism. I call it diversity digital style. Today, because events all around us still demand our attention be focused on these issues, we meet today to discuss equality and equity. We continue this with a student-led conversation. But this time, we have students from 3 entirely different school districts from throughout the country. I'm here today joined by Northeast College Prep at what is known as the Frederick Douglass campus. Also joining us through the digital worldwide divide are students from Baltimore City Public Schools and historic Little Rock High School. I want to first thank CUBE and the National School Boards Association and Cisco because what they have allowed us to do is expand the audience. There are students and adults nationwide who are joining us in this conversation. And so, as a way to jumpstart this conversation with the students in Rochester, Little Rock, and Arkansas, and Baltimore, we've extracted a certain script from Dr. King's book, Where Do We Go From Here? The message in this book is prophetic and profound. Indulge me for a moment as I read a portion of it. We are now faced with the fact that tomorrow is today. We are confronted with the fierce urgency of now. In this unfolding conundrum of life and history, there is such a thing as being too late. Procrastination is still the thief of time. Life often leaves us standing bare, naked, and dejected with a lost opportunity. The tide of affairs of men does not remain at the ebb, it ebbs. We may cry out desperately for time to pause her passage, but time is deaf to every plea and rushes on. Over the bleached bones and jumbled residue of numerous civilizations are the pathetic words, too late. The moving finger writes and having writ moves on. We still have a choice, however. Nonviolent coexistence or violent co-alienation. This may well be mankind's last chance to choose between chaos or community. In today's WebEx event, each school will weigh in the question presented in the title of the book, Where Do We Go From Here? Now, before we begin, I wanted to share with you all something. This is not just any edition of Dr. King's book, which was written in 1967. By the way, this was the last book that he wrote in 1967. The paragraph that I read to you was from the last paragraph of that book before he died in 1968. But I want to share with you, this is actually a signed copy of Dr. King's book. So his legacy for us is not only in words, but it is in our deeds. So we are going to ask the students to begin to assess this book and the impact of its book in 2015. We're going to begin with a video called Bloody Sundays, provided by Little Rock School District. It is the segue into a greater conversation which will take place here in the Rochester City School District. Can we play that video?
It was a cloudy day in there.
There was tension in the air in Selma.
Unfulfilled desires. Main.
Who will have power and whose life will be
It was a cloudy day in there.
There was tension in the air in Selma.
Unfulfilled desires remained to be achieved.
Even though the ocean separated them.
Citizens just want to be treated like citizens. January 30th, 1972. A somber Sunday when Derry's freedom fight turned to bloodshed.
March 7th,
1965.
Close cracking
Ebbs cracking.
The streets were
Never would happen that Sunday.
Irish concrete.
Alabama granite turned like the frosty of the people.
They walked.
They walk side by side in the same streets, facing the same obstruction.
What is the difference
What is
between
the difference
Selma
between
and Derry?
Selma and Derry?
Nothing. Justice looks the same.
No matter what
No
continent.
matter what continent.
Discrimination does not
Discrimination does not
based
discriminate
upon your skin
Based
color
upon
or
your
where
skin
you
color or where you stay.
It is merely based
It is merely
upon who will
based
be the
upon who
predator.
will be the predator,
Forced
who is
to be the
forced
prey.
to be the prey.
Jinga, are they ready to go right? They're going to be ready to go right away. So I'm just going to say, okay, Rochester. Huh? Oh, okay. All right.
Little Rock Central High
Little
School
Rock Central High School National Historic Site interprets the heroic story of the Little Rock Nine, the struggle to maintain segregation, and the surging tide of the civil rights movement in places like Little Rock and Topeka, Selma, Alabama, and Derry, Ireland.
We also invite you to create your own poetry projects, and not only use poetry as a vehicle to entertain people, but help people to understand about different cultures, and create social change through the arts.
Don't put it too much. Are you sure they're ready to do this?
Yeah. Hurry up, you guys. Camera.
Okay, that.
Move up.
Let's see the problem.
Oh, they'll be right here.
You said you got to be on.
Oh, okay. You're right here. Come on. You have to speak aloud.
We're back here in Rochester. We just scooted our chairs around. I want to tell you all, I don't know how hot it is in Baltimore or Arkansas, but it is hot here. How's it where you guys are? Is it hot there? What's the temperature? Is it good? You look very cool. We're sweating here, so it's kind of odd. Rochester is the land of winters and freezing snow, but today it's very hot. But in any event, we got something to do today, and we're here in Rochester, New York at Northeast Prep Academy. It's here at the Frederick Douglass campus, and the students here in Rochester are following up on this conversation about where do we go from here. So Rochester, represent.
All right, folks. Northeast College Prep, Rochester History. I'd like to start. My name is Jerome Johnson. I teach that course. I'd like each and every student to just introduce themselves. Starting over here with John.
Hi, I am John Barding.
I'm Amber Batting. I'm Isabel Hernandez. I'm Garcia Rice. I'm India Allen.
I'm Zachariah Tanner.
I'm Markiana Kelly. I'm Mrs. Mobley.
I'm Antonio Cummings.
I'm Gabby Lucas. I'm Maria Vasquez. I'm Linda Austin.
Thank you. Let's start out. I have a couple of questions that I'd like to pose to the class. One being that Brown versus Board of Education is really a landmark case in U.S. history. Because
The Brown versus Board of Education was such a landmark case because it reversed the Plessy versus Ferguson case ruling that separate was equal.
separate but equal. So what does that mean?
The schools will be separated. They will have equal rights. Same. Equality.
Equality? Were they equal?
No.
No, they weren't.
Someone tell me why.
They were never equal because they were separate, and the white districts get the best books and the best utensils, and the color students in the color districts will get the white students hand-me-downs.
Let me ask you, how would you feel if something like that happened to you?
I would be very upset.
I feel like let down because I couldn't have any stuff.
Because you can have your own stuff. And it was based solely on what? It was based solely on race. So black students were just treated differently. Okay? Well, can someone in here just describe, just briefly for me, some incidences of separate but equal? Hey, describe some incidences.
Water fountain?
Water fountain?
Restaurant. Bathrooms.
Bathrooms?
Movie theaters.
Movie theaters? Schools? Wait a minute, what about hospitals?
Yeah.
They didn't have the same care as the white people did.
Say that a little bit louder, Gab.
They didn't have the same care as the white people did.
Some white doctors even refused to aid black people. Like, if they were injured, they would not care for them.
Oh, that's pretty good. Well, you know, that ruling was made back in the 50s. How did the South react to it?
Even after Brown versus Board of Education opened the doors to integrating schools, many Southerners pushed back by protesting. It was not just the South, it was the North too. In Rochester schools, they were still segregated until 1972. Charlotte High School even was the last school to be integrated because the white people did not think it was right that the black people should be into that school.
You mean it wasn't just in the South?
No.
North as well.
Oh, so it was also in the North. Well, my next question is, not only did they protest, but what else was happening in the United States?
Lynching.
Lynching?
They were beating up people left and right.
Beating up people left and right?
Protesting and rioting.
Protests and rioting?
They pulled their students out of the school.
Oh, they pulled their students out of the school. Well, that was then. And remember the last three sentences of Martin Luther King Jr.'s Where Do We Go From Here? I'd like you to relate that to today. Our parents pulling children out of schools because of race.
Yes.
Can someone be a little bit more specific for me?
Well, in the suburbs, it's more, majority race is white. But in, like, the cities, it's majority black now. And so it used to be reversed, where that there wasn't, that majority of all schools were basically white and there weren't as many black schools. And in the city, we have an urban-suburban program, which pretty much means that the kids in the city school district will be able to go to suburban schools, but the only way you can get into that program is with your test scores. And that right there is segregation because you're taking the kids that have the better test scores out of the city schools and you're bringing them to the suburban schools, but you're not giving the kids that have very low test scores the opportunity to have that education that the suburban kids have.
Okay, so we're taking the best and the brightest out of the urban schools. Now, I know that you look at your own school. What's the racial makeup of your school?
Black and Hispanic.
Black and Hispanic.
So is that still segregation?
Yeah.
Yes.
But I thought we ended segregation back in the 50s.
Nope.
No. It's still going on.
Oh, it's still going on.
A lot of the white parents decided that since the city schools had to be integrated to both blacks, whites, Hispanics, and all that, that they were going to move out to the suburbs because there weren't that many black people out there that could afford the suburbs.
So, in other words, we still have segregation even to this day. Those are vestiges of segregation. Well, you know, when you look at the Rochester community, is Rochester as a whole segregated?
Yes.
I know no one in here has ever been had racial profiling. We've ever heard of that term, racial profiling?
Yeah.
What does it mean?
Basing someone on their race, like based on what they could possibly do or the type of person they are.
Oh. So racial profiling has led to what in the United States?
Yeah.
That's like how?
Tamir Rice was shot.
Oh, Tamir Rice?
12-year-old boy. He was playing at the park with a toy gun, and the police drove by, and they stopped, and without warning him or anything, they just saw him as a threat just because he was black, and they shot him and killed him.
Trayvon Martin, he was coming back from the corner store, and he cut through an apartment complex, and George Zimmerman just shot him.
Because he seen him as a threat.
So that's still happening even today. Any other incidences?
Mike Brown and Eric Garner.
Eric Garner? Where was that? In New York City? Okay, and Michael Brown, where was that at? Ferguson, Missouri. So racial profiling is still alive and kicking even in the United States. I think I remember President Eisenhower saying you can make a law, but until you change the hearts of the people, it don't mean anything. But I have another question here for you too. Thinking about Martin Luther King's last two sentences of his published work about whether we're marching toward chaos or we're going to march toward community. Where do you think that we are today?
Chaos.
And why do you say that?
The riots in Baltimore, and just a few years ago, you had the bombings in the Boston Marathon.
The gun violence.
Gun violence? Where?
In Rochester, everywhere else, too.
Oh, gun violence? Where is it primarily taking place? In whose communities?
The urban.
Okay. In the whose community?
Ours.
Ours?
The black community.
Oh, the black community. So are we going to, well, let me rephrase this question, or let me ask another question. How can you help to promote community? What are you going to do to help create a community?
Become a mentor to the youth.
I'll become a mentor.
Help programs like First Robotics and MCC Upward Bound.
Be mentors to young students.
Mentors to young students?
Socialize with different crowds of students of different races and stuff like that. So maybe people won't have such a steady opinion on black people.
Do something as a community, such as pick up trash on the side of the road or do a community garden.
Clean sweep.
Anyone else? How are you going to promote community?
Volunteer.
Volunteer how, Gabby?
I volunteer and help. You can teach young anything. You can volunteer at rec centers too.
Homeless shelters.
Right. Feed homeless people. Like bread and stuff. like bread.
And my last question for you all. When you go to the cafeteria, who do you sit with?
Friends.
Friends.
Because we're talking about community.
So maybe we should sit with other people on lunch.
Go ahead, Angela.
Yes, go. Yeah.
I said people who are
No, hold on a second. Could you all hear her? In Little Rock, could you hear her? Could you hear her? Okay. Say one more time.
I said the majority of your
So that's who you sit with. So are we going to change that?
Yes.
Right. And socialize. That's socialize. Right.
Socializing. So we're going to work toward community. We want Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream of having a community to be for real, right? Not just talk.
All right, so let's expand that community. At this particular point, how we've done this is we set this up so that the students in Little Rock and Baltimore can ask Rochester questions based on the statements that they just made. So what do you got for us? Now let's not act like this is the first time you've talked to other students. Get rid of the shy voices. You all know if you were in the cafeteria, you'd be speaking loud and clear. So we need you all to do that here today. Just pretend you're literally sitting in the same classroom. They just made some remarks about what they think about racism and civil rights and what's going on in terms of violence. Ask them a question. Let's start with you, Little Rock. What questions do you have based on their presentation?
Hi, my name is Zoe, and my question is, do you believe social media affects our thoughts on how different races are seen in society?
Good question. Want to answer, but you got to use your loud voice. Yes.
I do believe that social media has an effect on how our community is, because social media, as if one person doesn't like somebody, it's going to be posted all over the internet. So in which case, once it's on the internet, then everybody knows, and people are going to have a problem with that person as well if they are actual friends with you.
Now, let me ask you, this is a follow-up question. Social media, it gets a lot of folks in trouble. What you all didn't tell them is we got fights occurring in our festivals, right?
Yes.
We got fights occurring at our theaters.
Yes.
And at the transit center.
Yes.
What's the impact on race and civil rights on students when that kind of stuff happens?
A lot of the time it's the blacks or the Hispanics that get blamed for it. But 9 times out of 10, it's probably the white kids that are starting it, not the blacks or the Hispanics. So really, in all actuality, it's the kids that don't really start the drama that are getting blamed for it.
Baltimore, are you there? Just wave if you can hear me. Can you hear me? All right, I see you there. But I'm going to be honest with you. You know, I just told you we had some problems in our transit center with young kids cutting up, at our movie theaters, and at our festivals. Y'all had some issues not too long ago with young people. Tell us about that. I know you weren't expecting that question, but tell us about what happened there and what effect do you think that had on people's perception of young people?
Hi, Rochester. My name is Ms. Jonas. I'm the AP American Government and Politics teacher here at Digital Harbor High School in Baltimore. And that is what the majority of our presentation is going to be about. So we look forward to answering that question. But our question was actually kind of targeting the same back at you, and that's coming from Michaela.
All right.
Hi, I'm Michaela, and I would like to know, how did you receive your information about the occurrences in Baltimore?
Okay, you got to repeat the question.
How we got our information? What was going on?
Oh, okay. So the question was, how did we get our information about what was happening in Baltimore? Is that the question?
Yes.
Yes.
News. Okay, one at a time. They're right here.
Social media. We also get it in newspapers.
Okay. Anybody else? Where else do you get your news? News, social media.
The television.
Say it again louder.
Other people who talk about it.
Other people who talk about it.
Other people who have been there as well.
Other people who've been there as well. All right. All right. Now, Little Rock, you're on the hot seat. It's time for your presentation. You ready? Little Rock, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, the floor is yours.
A question was asked, what can you do to create? What do you? We are okay. Okay. I'm Santiago. The Civil Rights Memory Project at Little Rock Central High School began as a one-time assignment for students to write about their experiences dealing with human rights. We're in our 10th year, and the Memory Project has become a part of the core curriculum, and students are working with community organizations to collect, preserve, and interpret oral history on civil and human rights.
So basically this came from a 9th grade civics project where the teachers asked the students in their classes to go home and interview a relative that had something to, and record their experiences that had something to do with human and civil rights. And this was done in preparation for the 50th anniversary of the desegregation of Central High. And for the past over 10 years now, they've been doing this, and we've collected over 750 essays.
The Memory Project team wanted to find a way to interpret the essays. So we put the essays into 2 books, and the essays that haven't gone on the books go into our Memory Project website. We put them in reader theaters, spoken word projects like the Blaze Sunday video we showed you, and digital storytelling that includes videos and podcasts.
We found essays that we will put in our Dropbox that relate to the theme of this webcast, which include the integration of schools, neighborhoods of communities facing chaos, and the individuals who work to be agents of change, such as the essay that discusses the Rodney King riots and the riots after the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King.
So now you've heard a little bit about the Memory Project. We're going to jump into the middle of a reading circle discussion, which is sort of like a Socratic seminar, only with 2 pairs of essays, because we feel that together these 2 essays tell a more powerful story than when told separately. And so first time around this circle, we only share direct quotes from these essays, preserving the integrity of the author's words. The second time, we open the floor to general discussion and making connections between the stories. And then finally, we always end with a question, because we feel that history never has a final answer. And so here is a little bit of background about the 2 essays we'll be discussing.
So this first essay is called Fight for Respect. It's about an African-American student's interview with her grandmother. It takes place in a small town in the Arkansas Delta in the 1950s. It's about her big mama being a cook for a small cafe, but not allowed to eat her own meal in the same room with the people she was cooking for. Also about her grandmother's angry confrontation with the police officer who grabbed her young son.
And hi, I'm Yupeng. And our second essay is called You Can't Fight Fire with Fire. And it's one of our African-American students' interview with a family friend that lives in Chicago. And it actually took place on the night that Barack Obama was elected as our president. And it includes a part about his female friend who is white, who was hit in the face by a black woman. And the message that it sends is that we can't respond to violence with more violence.
Oh, yeah. So in the essay, Fight for Respect, I highlighted he left her alone because he found out that not every black person is going to take his mess. Because when I read this, it made me feel that, like, a person can only take so much oppression and prejudice, and after a while, if you continue to take that, you're going to start to lash out, and sometimes with violence.
Who else has a quote from that story that jumped out?
Oh, no, you had to stoop down to the level, right?
Just a minute, back here.
It says you can't always talk to solve your problems. Sometimes you have to stoop to their level. And I like that because you can only take, like he said, you can only take so much of this before you have to do something. And doing something, even if it's not necessarily the best course of action, is better than doing nothing.
Okay, I got it. All right, so it says she grabbed a knife out of her pocket and said, "I quit. I refuse to be disrespected as long as I am alive." I sort of thought that was interesting because it's pretty daring to grab a knife out of your pocket, and also it goes later on in the story, and she threatens the owner with the knife. So that's pretty daring there.
Oh, and now we're going to transition into our second essay, You Can't Fight Fire with Fire. I chose, true, them white people did do us wrong way back then, but that gives us no right to treat them like that. And this is so important to me because it might be instinctive upon reading about how white people have mistreated blacks for decades for blacks to lash out, but we have to keep in mind that we just can't do that. Because you can't fight violence with more violence because that only causes a cycle of more hatred towards each other.
I highlighted, he went on to talk about no matter how much change Mr. Obama said he could bring to the world, a lot of people still doubt him. They could only think of one reason to doubt him. That's because he's black. And I think that kind of reflects the mentality that a lot of people have today, that just because somebody's a certain color, that they have certain assumptions about what he can do. And it's a very dangerous thing to do because you shouldn't base what people think just based on their skin color.
The quote I highlighted was, "You can't fight fire with fire," because it kind of refutes the original quote from the previous essay, which was sometimes you have to stoop down to the level, because like what he said earlier, it kind of causes more problems for us.
Yes. Anybody else have a quote off either of those two essays that jump out at you? How about some questions that those essays make you ask yourself?
I have a quote and then a question. So in our second essay, it says that it took a lot for people to erase the color lines and look between the lines. And so I feel like this is one of the most important parts of moving towards a integrated society, because it's the idea that, like, we can't look past these lines and see what people are really, like, see people for who they are instead of the color of their skin. And that's what's causing, like, all the hatred and all the chaos in our society. So all we need to do is kind of look past, like, the color of people's skins and see them for, like, who they are and their ideas and beliefs.
What about the question? What question does the essay, stories in the essay, make you ask yourself?
So, like, I had a question from the essay, what was the first essay? Fight for Respect, which was, why did her big mama finally lash out, and why was it justified? Anyone else? Yeah. Do you have a question? Nobody else? All right, she has a question.
My question is for the essay, Fight for Respect. And my question is, why does society have you believing all these beliefs, and, like, what caused you to believe them?
Another one of the questions we had when looking at these essays was that, what would we do if we were in these people's shoes? Like, it's easy to say that, oh, I'm going to, like, stand above all of this, because we're looking at it from an outside. But what if it was you experiencing this type of hatred towards you? Like, would you be able to just stand there and take it, or would you lash out too?
Talk about the essay. Transition them before
Well, I introduced a man called Andrew Thompson who lived in Los Angeles during the famous riot resulting from when white police officers were ruled innocent of beating Rodney King, a black man, despite clear video evidence. And he talked about how he disagreed with the court but was still threatened by the riots. And one of my favorite quotes from that essay is that he said, "It doesn't even matter if it's black and white. It's the fact that police have the power to kill American citizens and they're not held accountable for it." Which begs the question, I think, when this sort of oppressive situation exists, what can you do that isn't violent? What sort of action can you take that isn't destructive?
So now we're going to open the floor up for some Q&A. So anybody from Little Rock who wants to ask a question, excuse me, from the Baltimore or Rochester who would like to ask a question, please ask and we'll try our best to answer it.
Any questions?
Out of all the essays that you guys had to choose from, why did you guys pick those two essays?
Well, the reason why we picked these two essays is because they seem to complement each other in the way of how people deal with their oppression. On one hand, you have a lady who lashes out because she's tired of being oppressed and she wants people to get off of her. But on the other hand, you have a man who's telling people, we've been oppressed for so long, but you can't fight back, like, in a violent manner. You have to be peaceful with it. And so we just thought it was interesting in how these two different people dealt differently with their similar circumstances.
Let me ask you this. Michael Brown, it appears, fought back. How do you reconcile that? That is, Michael Brown decided to fight back with the essay that you read. He didn't, it appears, didn't turn the other cheek. What do you think about that? Still there? Little Rock?
You know, there are some scenarios where you're going to be punished. You know it's not right. There's really nothing that you can do besides fight back. In his situation, he was going to be thrown in jail or shot, either way. Thrown in jail if he was lucky. Shot if the police officer was really mean. I mean, possible. And, no, I mean, if he hadn't fought back, he might still have gotten shot, or at the very least thrown in jail. So at that point, there's really not much more that you can do if you don't. You just have to do the best you can do.
Baltimore, do you have any questions for Little Rock?
In your school system, do you believe it's more diverse now than it was in the past, or do you believe it's still the same?
Could you repeat that one time, please?
Do you believe that your school system is more diverse now? Do you believe that it was like, how can I explain that? It was more divided by race and not by economic class?
I'm sorry, could you closer to the mic a little bit?
We're getting echo.
Yeah.
That's okay. The question is about the diversity today. Is diversity today primarily race-based or economically based segregation where you live?
Well, we've seen that they kind of go hand in hand. Some of the poorest people in Little Rock tend to be minorities, and so that presents two huge problems for those people where it's very hard for them to move upward, because not only because of their race, but also because of their socioeconomic status.
We have about 6 minutes left. Little Rock, I have another question for you. The Eric Gardner situation, that was a guy who was selling onesies, cigarettes, illegally, right? But obviously you can see how that ended. He was choked. There's this notion that you should turn the other cheek. What do you do if someone falsely accuses you of something or accuses you of something, you know, not too serious, like selling onesies, but yet put you in a chokehold? Do you fight back? Do you tell people to fight back? Do you choose that kind of violence or not?
Okay, start over. Well, not necessarily. It's in most cases it's best to take the high road, even though the high road may not be the easiest road, because if in the end you fight back or you get angry, how is that making you any better than what your oppressor is?
Rasha wants to respond to that? Speak up.
In that situation, the oppressor was the police officer, and Eric, he wasn't fighting back. He was telling the police officer that he couldn't breathe, but the police officer did not take him out of the chokehold until he was dead.
Do you want to respond to that?
There's a quote from there's a quote from the Lord of the Rings. There's a quote from the Lord of the Rings that comes to mind when I think of that. It goes, "Those who have no swords can still die upon them."
Repeat that one more time.
It goes, "Those who have no swords can still die upon them." I mean,
No, but explain what that means for folks who haven't.
Well, I mean, Eric Garner, obviously, he didn't try to defend himself in the right kind of scenario. That would have been enough to keep him from dying. But sometimes you be peaceful and you get killed. If you don't have a sword, if you don't have a gun, if you don't shoot back at the police officer, they still shoot at you. They can still shoot at you.
But wait, isn't shooting at a police officer maybe that's the right run?
You're whispering and we can't hear. Say it again.
Basically, I compared the swords to the guns. Those two, you don't shoot back at the police officer and you still get shot. That's what happened to Eric Garner.
Hello, hi, I'm Anthony Anya. In my opinion, I feel like sometimes you can't really take the high road if your oppressor's overtaking you, in a say. So that's how I feel about the Eric Garner situation.
Anthony, you were in the Bloody Sunday poetry group and helped to write that. So what did you learn from studying the events in Selma and Derry, Northern Ireland, where oppression was brutal and swift and deadly in the case of Derry? What do you learn from that story about possible the road to change, moving beyond that moment of deadly conflict?
And just essentially, you can't really, at times, you can't really be this violent, like in the previous essay, you can't fight fire with fire. You can't be violent, but you can be peaceful and find a means of bringing your voice, putting your voice out there instead of being violent and causing chaos, in a sense. Because in Bloody Sunday, the Irish Catholics wanted to freely practice their religion, but they were being oppressed by the Protestants. So they couldn't really be violent towards them because the British had more power against them. So they had to find another means of putting their voices out there. So they started to protest, and eventually the response got a lot of people more aware about the situation that's occurring in Derry Island. So they started to put the voices out there and just let people know.
So one of the questions Little Rock has is that what do you guys in Baltimore and Rochester think about the Eric Garner situation?
What do you think about that?
I wanted to respond. So you're saying if we protest and keep speaking up that we'll get somewhere, but with the Eric Garner situation, he told the police officer multiple times that he couldn't breathe. So what happens when speaking up isn't enough?
Anybody want to answer that?
Hold on, what do you say? I feel as though that Eric Garner, he really was minding his business. Like they wrongfully was bothering him. They wrongfully accused him of something that he wasn't doing. They took advantage of their power, basically. They stepped out of their boundaries. because they assumed that he was selling cigarettes when the man was truthfully just minding his own business, just standing there in front of a store.
I think that's a good opportunity to go into Baltimore City, but I want to be honest with you, nobody has really answered the question, what do you do when speaking up is not enough? You haven't answered, nobody, none of these schools have answered that question. But Baltimore City, what you got for us? Go ahead.
Thank you very much. So we are just coming off our AP test last week, and we are still processing a lot of what has been happening in Baltimore. To put things into perspective, Baltimore City Public Schools is a very, very, very large school district, but within our school district, we employ 133 police officers and only 123 guidance counselors. So we're coming from an environment that is already telling us that our policing is more important than our attending college. The way we have structured this is that each of us has prepared our own personal opinions. These are not the opinions of our school districts. They are not these opinions of the school. This is each of us individually sharing our own points of view. Some of us take the approach that we are already in a state of community. Some of us take the approach that chaos is necessary to change the way the system is currently operating. As our students share their opinions, you'll note that they do not all agree with each other. In fact, some of them actively disagree with each other. Baltimore is not a monolithic community. We're going to begin with Beatty.
Yes. Hi, my name is Beatty, and I'm going to say my opinion on what has been happening. My opinion is that the protesters got violent because they got way too angry and could not handle the anger, so it got out of control. And the only way they knew how to release their anger is by going violent. Not all the protesters were violent though, but the media chose to mostly focus on the violent protesters because the media likes to show the things that attract the people's attention. But then there was a lot of people who were peacefully protesting and they were doing the right thing. And then the small people, the few people who were just there and trying to cause chaos and just jumping in, who were not part of the peaceful protest, just decided to join in and start burning buildings and doing all this crazy stuff, which ruined the image that the peaceful protesters were trying to send out. That police brutality should be it's a serious issue in Baltimore and we should do something about it. Thank you.
I am coming from the standpoint that violence is necessary sometimes, but then there's a fine line between what you can do and what you cannot do. When it comes to the situation here in Baltimore with Freddie Gray, it was peaceful at first, but at some point you have to stop being peaceful when you realize you're being ignored. At some point you have to do something else. So we became violent, and it was okay when we were setting fire to the police cars and getting upset with the police directly. It became a problem specifically when people started looting and setting other people's cars on fire and setting buildings on fire, breaking into CVS. That was just ignorance. That was just plain ignorance. And I'm coming from an AP standpoint, so it's we analyze this stuff very, very carefully. But other schools who don't have as much opportunity as we do, they'll look at it and be like, oh, this is a chance for us to go get some free stuff. Yeah. So, yeah.
Hi, I'm Michaela, and I come from the standpoint thinking that people don't actually know what actually happened here in Baltimore because the media did focus more on the riots and not what the riots were coming from. The people started rioting because they were angry about Freddie Gray, but everyone began to forget about Freddie Gray when the riots occurred. I believe that Baltimore tends to be a very peaceful place, and sometimes things tend to get out of hand when people are not educated and do not know what actually is going on. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Curtis Brown. I'm coming from the standpoint that I think that, especially with the national media, they sensationalized the riots and kind of gave Baltimore a bad rap. It wasn't just, riots after day after day after day. It was only one riot. But the way the media played it, they played riots that weren't our riots. They played rioting on days when there were no riots, and it made it seem like there were more riots than there were. And it gave us a really nasty look. Thank you.
Come on. Am I good? Okay. Hi, my name is Trayvon, and I'm coming from the standpoint that the media tried to twist what the local news was trying to put out and saying that people were angry because of Freddie Gray and not just because they wanted free stuff, and that this means that the national media tried to say that Baltimore is bad and that it's never gonna change. And I worry that people watch cable news and think that Baltimore only cares about never being peaceful and doesn't want change. Thank you.
Good job. I feel that this all started from a lack of communication between minorities and the police. I feel that the police do stuff without informing the public. So whenever we see the police doing something, we automatically think it's wrong. They're actually just basically doing their job. So whenever we see them writing us up or doing bad stuff to us for no reason, we automatically get the mentality from a young age to hate the police. And say, oh yeah, we can do wrong because we're going against the police. So I feel that there will continue to be chaos unless we get better communication between us and the police and get our views and opinions out. Thank you.
I feel as though the police. Hold on. All right. I believe that police nowadays, they are trying to kill, they are automatically trying to kill instead of protecting us, as in they should do. So if we don't do something wrong, we're actually being treated poorly, and it violates our 8th Amendment. So thank you.
Anybody else? Come on. Go.
All right. My name is Alan, and I believe that people don't really trust the police because they're afraid of what they might do, and they're in bad areas, so there's already raised suspicion in that area. So they would feel threatened that they would probably have to run from them and things like that. And I want to build on what Robert said. So I don't know.
Okay, my name is Adrian. I'm coming from a point where chaos really starts from police and their actions. It's like we expect them to protect us and know that we know if we're doing the right thing, if they're doing the right thing, when the truth be told is they're not doing the right thing, because at the end of the day, we understand they gotta do their job, but it's like they get out of control with it. It's like we understand they have to meet quotas, they gotta get this many tickets, they have to arrest these many people, but it's like the fact is that they take it out of hand. They take too much charge. It's not like they have too much power. It's just that they take advantage of it. It's like they would arrest somebody for standing there. They will plant drugs on somebody because they need to meet their quota. It's like we understand they need to do their job, like you said, but it's like they gotta do their job. If they don't see nothing, then they don't see nothing. You can't press something on nobody. You can't make it seem like they're doing something wrong when they're truthfully doing something right.
My name's Eli, and I'm from the South. That if it wasn't for the government actually like telling people what's happening, everything would have been fine. Like if the government actually tell people this is what we're going through, this is the problems that's affecting us now, we wouldn't even have a riot. It would have been like a normal standard day. Sure, the man died, but at the same time, it's like if we were to know what he had done, his past and everything, it wouldn't seem like, oh, this man got shot for no reason. This man had a 97% of his bomb broken for no reason. But since we didn't know the full story yet, we had a riot and we had chaos emerge out of for no reason. And I'm done.
Oh. Honestly speaking, Baltimore is not full of chaos. What you see from the media is not a chaotic community. We have places in Baltimore where people are generally nice to each other. But you know, in all cities, all locations in America, you have bad cities, you have troubled places, you have places where the relationship with the cops are not exactly okay. And that doesn't mean that Baltimore is the only chaotic city that you'll see. There has been many places where the tension has risen to a point that it just explodes, like in Ferguson. My standpoint, before that the riots happened in Baltimore, I thought that, oh, it was crazy down there. Oh, they're just tearing up their city. It just generally just messed up. When it happened here, it was like, it gave me a whole different perspective. When the looting happened, that's just all the people who were like, oh, since all this craziness going to happen, I'm going to decide to go down to Montgomery or where like all the craziness happens so I can go and get me some stuff, give me some free stuff, give me some shoes. Because I don't really care about what's happening at large. I don't care about Freddie Gray. I'm just going to go get me some free Jordans. I'm going to get me some snacks. I'm going to do whatever I want to do. And let's be honest here. Some of y'all going to be opportunists. When y'all see like a pair of new shoes right there, you're going to grab it. You're going to do it. And like, that's not everybody's standpoint. There's generally good people in Baltimore, and Baltimore is not necessarily like that, right? Like right now it's sunny outside. I'm pretty sure there's people outside playing basketball or just generally talking. And
Any questions?
Also, the police cannot police police, okay?
So as you can see, we have a wide range of very, very, very different opinions, some of which we're gonna have to talk about later. But at this point, we want to open it up for what questions you have. We want this to be as unfiltered as possible for you to hear directly from people who live in Baltimore what our experiences are.
Why do you think that the national media itself has put Baltimore as a bad community?
Good meeting.
Curtis.
Curtis, step up.
I think it's because generally it's kind of the stereotype for Baltimore. They call it like, what do they call it, Murdermore or whatever?
Baltimore Murderland.
Baltimore Murderland. It's one of these cities that they have these stereotypes that kind of exist in there. Where, they just think it's bad, and so when the media sees something like this, they can jump on and say, "Oh, those crazy people in Baltimore! Look what they're doing now!" Thank you.
Also, the media wants to get money. That is the bottom line. They get more money when people watch more, and of course, you're going to want to watch people fighting.
Adrian has
Yeah, but I think they want to ask another question. Keep it moving.
Okay, so the riots in Baltimore and Ferguson have got us nowhere in changing how the police treat minorities. How can we protest peacefully and address the suppressor and get a result that's desirable?
That's what happened. We did that, right?
I believe with our violent protests, we did get some form of results because now people see those officers involved with the Freddie Gray case being prosecuted. And I feel like the violence made our public officials more aware that do have a serious problem and that things could get out of hand if they do not tend to this problem and solve it right away.
How do you actually get solution?
Oh.
I have,
Alright.
if you guys feel like we're just looking down upon you because you guys are violent, why do you guys choose violence as answers? Like, if you guys, I don't know how to word it.
Hold on.
You guys are feeling some sort of way because people in media are looking down upon you because you're being violent, but you guys are saying that violence is the answer. Why do you guys say that violence is the answer, but feel some type of way when you're looking down upon you because of it? Yes?
We feel some type of way because you only concentrate on the violence. Whenever we peacefully protest and we show you how we can be proper and all that, you do not care. The media coverage of the protests that happened before the violence, they covered almost non-existent. When we got violent, when we showed you that we actually care about what's going on in our city, y'all backed up and gave us the media attention that we actually deserve.
Adrian. Right, what he had said, it's like the minute we like do a peaceful protest, like when they was like in front of the police station peacefully protesting, they ain't pay them no mind, the media ain't even pay them no mind, ain't give them no answers. But the minute they start rioting and want to throw rocks at police officers, talking about Purge Day, this, that, and third, then, oh, y'all pay some attention to it. So it's not that we turn to violence, it's that that's what y'all make us turn to. If we can't do nothing peacefully, then obviously we got to turn to violence.
Things can be done peacefully. Not everything is about violence. Do you guys feel that violence is the only answer?
She didn't listen.
Honestly, I feel that you need a mix of violence and peaceful protesting because the people that burned up the cars, it wasn't like, oh, burn TV. It like showed a message. It showed that we're tired of cops using their power to go crazy. We directly at the people that we got a little mix to show them what you mean, but not go crazy as like burning.
Burning cars will fix something.
Police cars, burning police cars.
I have a question for you all. Were you aware that Digital Harbor students did a peaceful protest and we just did a peaceful protest? Were you aware of it? Did you see that anywhere in the news?
You guys try to at least get social media to pay attention to it?
But I'm saying we did a peaceful protest. Did you hear about our peaceful protest before me saying anything?
We were aware of that. We did see that. But we were also aware of the violence that happened.
Yes, and you're focusing on our violence, proving our point that violence gets more attention. So if we have to be violent in order to get things accomplished, because that's all that people focus on instead of positive things, that's what we're going to do, because that's what gets paid attention to, not our peaceful protest.
I mean, the conversation actually getting really good. But let me ask you a question about that. I can't resist. Can you think of an instance in American history where a civil rights protester or leader never engaged in violence but yet was successful? This is to Baltimore City. Can you think of a single person in American history who was never violent but yet had many successes? Can you think of one or two? Can you think of one? How about Rosa Parks? Or how about Martin Luther King?
Yes, we may have the Rosa Parks, the Dr. Kings, but then again, they had thousands of people against them. For us, we only had a small city to back ourselves up. We tried our best with our limited resources to get our point across. Yes, they were small cities too, but then again, they reached out. We tried to reach out, but did we get any help? No, we did not. So we had to take it upon ourselves to actually get across. We ensured, yes, stuff was burned, buildings were destroyed, but that's only because the small group of people who did not want to take part in this peacefulness and actually try to get their point across, they were just like, nah, I'm not with the half of that. But the people that were, they were out there really saying, wherever you guys were at, And I'm done.
And let's go a little bit further back in history. We wouldn't be America without a war. We had a whole war to make us America. So violence sometimes can help.
Okay. I'll give that.
Wait. Somebody wants to say something. Go ahead.
So back to what Little Rock said about not fighting, fire with fire. Do you think it was absolutely necessary to burn the cars or burn the buildings? I agree that maybe a little violence is necessary, but I don't think it should have gotten to that.
I think that we all wish that it never led up to that point. But there's a long series of things that we wish had not happened in Baltimore, dating back to restrictive covenants in Sandtown, Winchester, that limited it to an African-American only neighborhood, that limited that same neighborhood that has the highest incarceration rate in America in this neighborhood. There are many things down the line that we wish had not happened as a series of discriminatory policies. And if the peaceful protest that we had participated in on the weekend before had worked, in an ideal world, I think we all agree that violence is not desirable. I think there are certain students who believe that when you are not meeting your goals in a certain way, there are some students who agree with Malcolm X, that occasionally violence is necessary to achieve a more radical end.
Let me ask you this. There's no one who's going to debate with you, the student who said that America was formed on violence. You're absolutely right. But there also have been significant nonviolent movements that have moved this country forward. So the question isn't, Dr. King, any longer, what is the community going to do? Going to resort to chaos or come together as a community? The question probably is, for the person holding the match or the person getting ready to throw the rock through the window, what are your choices? So forget what that community will do in Baltimore, Rochester, and Little Rock. What are you going to do to improve your life, to make it into a community? Are you going to pick up the rock? Are you going to throw the match? Or are you going to look? What are you going to do? Because that's really the solution. Until you become governor or mayor, you're going to have to make some individual choices. One of those choices could be to pick up that match and blow up that car. But that could mean that you could lose your freedom. So the question is, for all of us, not Baltimore City, because all cities are burning up. It's not just Baltimore City. A lot of folks are feeling your frustration. The question is, what is the choice? The real choice isn't chaos or community. The real choice is, are you going to stay in school or drop out of school? Are you going to be a good father or an absentee father? Because those are the things that make community, right? Those are the real day-to-day decisions, the choices that you have to make. So my question is, what are you going to do, Baltimore City or Little Rock or Rochester? Are you going to stay in school or drop out of school?
Stay in school.
And what about you, Baltimore City?
Stay in school.
Now let me just say this to you, Little Rock. If Baltimore City, how difficult will it be for you to maintain that choice to stay in school if you think you're going to throw a rock through a window?
None.
It'll be tough to maintain that choice, right?
You know what I'm saying? I thought you rock and still stay in school. Like decision off of me throwing a rock. That's just plain stupidity. If anything, I'm gonna base my whole entire decision, my whole entire school career leading up to that situation. Why would I let a rock, something that can just break, which can always get repaired, affect my education, which I can never truly get back? But that means I'm had to go to alternative school, stay there for an extra 2 years so I can get my credits that I need in order for me to graduate, go to another college, just throw the rock and still get my education.
But my point is, people are actually picking up rocks. People are actually picking up rocks and throwing them through windows. People are actually taking Molotov cocktails and throwing them into police cars. And when you make those decisions, it affects your ability, if you're arrested, to go to school, right? So if you're saying to yourself, education is important, don't you think you ought to be saying to folks who are outside your realm, education is important, picking up books is important, not throwing rocks? Is that a fair thing?
I want to make sure that Little Rock has the opportunity. I want to make sure we're not drowning them out.
Fair enough. Little Rock?
Okay, if Little Rock doesn't want
Little Rock, are you there? All right, listen.
I told you.
I want to,
Stars.
Baltimore, I want to give you the last word because we're running out of time. What do you want to add to this discussion? Because we don't want you to think like anybody's picking on you, but you've raised some important issues and you've been very honest about it. So we want to give you the last word. What do you think the choice is, chaos or community? And how do we move to a community that is whole and peaceful? Tell us.
Okay, so Kylie, can you put the camera on me? And then Adrian will talk after me. Thank you, we appreciate that opportunity. And that's why you may have seen that we were in the Washington Post 3 times in the last 2 weeks advocating for peaceful protest. We absolutely agree with you, and that's why we are enrolled in an AP government course that staying in school is the most important. But a part of that is that we are not a monolithic. Baltimore is not a monolithic city. Baltimore is a very diverse city with many different opinions. And those opinions are not limited to racial and ethnic divides. These opinions are really what makes Baltimore such a rich and wonderful city to live in. And Adrian is going to close us out.
I feel as though I think we all do that. If y'all watching the news, y'all see the newspapers and y'all see us in there, maybe y'all should at least pay some attention to the good that we do instead of all the violence and all the bad that's in the news.
Thank you. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Baltimore City. Your insight and your experience has really been invaluable. To the rest of the nation watching and listening, don't be discouraged by the conversation. I think it actually is very productive. People are learning what people's frustrations are, why people get to a certain point where they would take their frustrations not only out in the streets, but sometimes at schools. But what we're seeing in Baltimore City, what we're seeing in Rochester and Little Rock, are students who understand the best way to change society is in the classroom. God bless you, and thank you very much for tuning in.
Thank you.
Y'all want to fight?